Hello, Iowa. You know, I know about this time of year. People come, they try to make some attenuated connection to Iowa. So I'm not going to tell you that my great-great-grandparents settled in Henry County in 1850. I'm not going to talk about the fact that my mother was born in Ottumwa, because that's not why we gather. We gather for the sake of our nation, for the sake of our nation standing in the world, and for the sake of America that we're going to pass on that next generation. We gather to make sure that Donald Trump is a one-term president. But you know what? It's more than that. It's about soundly rejecting the behavior that he's normalizing. The lies and the misstatements, the dividing us by race, by gender, by geography, the Twitter tirades. We expect more out of preschoolers than we do the President of the United States. And it's even more than that. It's about soundly rejecting the crony capitalism. When the person that actually cleans up tonight paid more than Amazon, paid more than Chevron in taxes, we can do a heck of a lot better. When a generation of workers have been replaced by independent contractors at the same time that union membership is half of what it was in the 1980s. When environmental regulations are being gutted by the polluters because that's what they asked for. This election's also about fighting back against Citizens United, making the federal government finally work for us, not the Koch brothers. That's been the fight of my career, and it's a challenge of our time. Look, there is a whole lot that we got to do. But you know what? First, we got to beat Donald Trump. And we got to be clear-eyed. If we can't win back places we lost, if we can't give people a reason to vote for us, not just against him, if we can't change our strategy, Donald Trump could win again. 2016, I was the only Democrat in the country to get reelected, a statewide reelect where Donald Trump won. He took Montana by 20. I won by 4. 25 to 30% of my voters voted for Donald Trump. The path to victory isn't just through the coasts and through the urban areas. The path to victory is through Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin, all across this country. We need to be able to be competitive both in the big areas and places just like here. A third of your counties win Obama, Trump. We got to be talking about how do we get those voters back, because this isn't just about the White House. This is actually about your state house as well. Look, I'm a pro-choice, pro-union, populist Democrat that won 3 elections in a red state, not by compromising our values, but by getting stuff done. That's how we win back the places we lost. Showing up, listening, talking about the challenges of everyday Americans. My legislature, guess what? It's more Republican than yours. Yet, we've been able to expand health care, expand mental health care, control costs. We've been able to make record investments in education. We've been able to kick dark money out of our elections. We've been able to do that and more. That's how we do win back the places we lost, getting stuff down. Only been in this race for about 10 weeks, 8th trip to Iowa. And the stories I take all across this country are the stories I hear from you all. For that teacher that has to work a second job just to afford her insulin. For that farmer in Rippey who told me that every time Trump tweets, they lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. For that retiree in Ottumwa that said to me, listen to those debates, our voice is missing. Folks can't wait for a revolution. Their challenges are in the here and now. We can beat Donald Trump, but we need to be able to give folks a reason to believe the economy in Washington, D.C. will work for them. We can take those steps. We don't do it with just plans that are written for press releases. They're promising everybody free everything. What people want is a fair shot. They want to believe that things can get better. We can tackle climate without leaving communities behind. We can actually invest in education without giving it all away. We can make people finally believe that this works for them. The core of the word progressive is making progress. I get Iowa nice. You're somewhere on my list. I'd ask you to join Attorney General Tom Miller and so many others over this next 177 days because you're the ones that actually make these decisions. Please join me. Please go to stevebullock.com. Look forward to seeing you along the trail. Thanks so much.
So, good evening, Wingding. Come on. We can do better than that. Let me try something else. Good evening, the good Democrats who are going to send J.D. Scholten to the Congress of the United States. That's more like it. How's everyone doing this evening? So in about 6 months, you have an awesome responsibility when you go to caucus. And I think you have to ask yourself two questions. The first question is, what candidate can beat Donald Trump? Because we got to send that reckless, lawless, dishonorable human being out of the White House as soon as possible. But to do that, we need a candidate that has an economic vision that excites every American, whether you're in a city or in a rural community, and I've been to all 99 counties, so I know what the people are talking about. You got to put forth a candidate who's got real solutions to the challenges we face as a nation, not impossible promises. You got to put forth a candidate who will build a big tent Democratic Party, like we did in 2018, when we flipped the House of Representatives by putting forth candidates that progressives and moderates and independents and even disaffected Republicans can get excited about. But the second question I think you have to ask yourself is who should lead our country? Because we need leadership badly at this moment in time. We need to reestablish our leadership role around the world. We need a leader who's committed to finding common ground and getting things done that matter to hard-working Americans at their kitchen table. And you know what we need more than anything? We need an individual who will restore decency and honor to the office of the presidency. And I stand before you, Iowa, because I believe I'm the right answer to those two questions. And that's why I'm running for president. And maybe it's the journey I've had with my own life. You know, I've lived the American dream. And I'm so grateful for the opportunities this extraordinary country has given me to learn and be the first in my family to go to college, to build 2 businesses and create thousands of jobs, to be blessed to be married to an amazing woman for 29 years and have 4 extraordinary daughters, and then the opportunity to serve my country in the Congress of the United States. But my story is getting harder to find. You know, young people today will be the first generation of Americans that won't do better than their parents. And we're also leaving them debts that they will not be able to repay, fiscal debts and climate debts. So I don't believe what the American people need is more gridlock, more partisanship, or more rigid ideology. I think you need solutions. I think we need big ideas like my plan for universal health care, but it preserves choice. I think we need massive investments in our country, in infrastructure and in basic research, which is why I'm proposing the largest investment in infrastructure and research that we've had since the building of the National Highway System and the creation of NASA. I think we need real solutions to the big issues we face as a nation. And not only is that the right way to govern, it's the right way to win. You know, in 1958, John F. Kennedy looked out at the American people and said, we shouldn't seek the Democratic answer, we should seek the right answer. And he was right then and he's right today. He is right today. And this is the calling of the Democratic Party, to become the party that the American people so desperately are looking for, a party that conducts itself with honor and dignity and works for hardworking Americans and gets things done that matters in their life and leads us not only here but around the world by getting back in things like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which President Obama was right about. Every acre of land in Iowa would be worth more today if we were in that agreement. That's how we beat Trump in Iowa. But this has to be our way forward. You know, I fundamentally believe that our most important responsibility is to leave the world better than we found it. And the one thing I want to tell you is this is not about me. You know, there's a great day in all of our lives when we realize it's not about us. It's about what we can do for other people. That's why I decided to dedicate the rest of my life to public service 10 years ago, to make a difference in the world. So I'm not running for president just to be your president. I'm running for president to do the job, to lead, to get things done, and restore dignity and respect to the most sacred office in the United States of America, the office of the presidency. God bless you, Iowa. Thank you for having me, and have a great wingding. Thank you all. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you, Iowa, for having me here tonight. It's been such a privilege to spend so much time in Iowa to come to understand how seriously you take this responsibility. We have a president in the White House who got that job in a very unusual way for America. He got that job by dividing one America from another America. And he is trying to keep that power by dividing America from itself. He thinks out there are 38% of the people that are going to stay with him no matter what. And a lot of those people live in rural areas, which is why it is so important for the Democratic Party to compete in rural Iowa and in rural America in this election. And everybody in this room knows we have a decision to make about the future of America and the future of rural America, the future of rural Colorado and of rural Iowa. And if we decide we're going to have a future in rural Iowa, we need rural hospitals in rural Iowa. We need broadband in rural Iowa. And we need schools in rural Iowa. And when there's one group of kids that have access to preschool and another group through no fault of their own that don't, equal is not equal. And when one group of kids has access to teachers and another group of kids can't even find teachers to live in the community, equal is not equal. And when one group of American children have the chance to go to college because they have guidance counselors and parents that went to college, and they live in a city where others went to college, and another group of kids don't, equal is not equal, and that's what we have to be about as Democrats in this election. That's what I've done through 2 tough national races in Colorado, and that's why my health care plan, which I wrote long before I was running for president, starts in rural America, not in urban America. That's why my climate plan starts in rural America. That's why I just introduced a broadband bill with your own congressperson in Iowa. It's because I believe we have to compete for these votes in rural America, but even more than that, if we are going to unite the American people, we need to unite rural America and the rest of America, and we need a Democratic president who will go to places in this country where we will never win more than 30% of the vote and say, we believe in you too. We need a president for whom that's not an afterthought, but that is the principal reason to be in the White House, which is to take back this country from the divider-in-chief and put it in the hands of a uniter-in-chief who knows that our future depends on everybody in this country, no matter where they come from. Repeating the talking points from the cable television the night before is not going to be what achieves victory for rural America. These policies will. And in the end, I believe, representing a state that is as rural as the state that I represent, that's only one state away from you, that there's much more that unites us than divides us. That Americans, no matter where they live, want a government that works again. They want unity, not division. They want progress over gridlock. And above all else, they want to know that we are not going to be the first generation of Americans, it's been said before, to leave less opportunity, not more, to the people coming after us. That's what we need to understand is our job in this moment. We can't put our heads down. We can't tell ourselves how sorry we are that we're in the position that we're in. We need to see this as an American opportunity, just like our parents and grandparents who fought to make this country more democratic, more fair, and more free. That's what we need to do between now and November. And if we do that, we will win and we will be able to govern the United States of America again. Thanks for having me today. Great to see all of you.
Thank you. Good evening. I was, of course, well known for producing a big share of the world's corn, but as I look at this event tonight with one candidate after another, it's clear that you're also in the cattle business. But I'm honored to play my part. This past week, like every week for the last 3 years, we have once again been reminded again and again why this campaign is so important. An immoral, unethical, dangerous president continues to divide us, even as families in El Paso and Dayton are mourning their loved ones gunned down in mass shootings, and dozens of others are in the hospital beds recovering from their injuries. We as Democrats might have our differences, but we all know the real opponent. We know who that real opponent is, and we cannot take our eyes off the prize. I also think we would be foolish to think that this will be easy. The fact is, Donald Trump's approval rating is 42 today. At this same point in their presidencies, Ronald Reagan was at 43, Barack Obama was at 44. Now, both of them were reelected, and both of them, or neither of them, had an economy as strong as what we have today. So we need to build a strong case to beat Donald Trump. Now, as much as we hate all his divisive, racist assaults on our values, that's not going to be enough to win. And much as we are embarrassed and ashamed by his incoherent behavior on the world stage, insulting our allies, embracing our enemies, breaking all of our agreements, that's not enough to win either. And it's not nearly enough to point out his sickening, pathetic narcissism and misogyny. His voters don't care about it. They elected him because he promised he was going to bring back an economy that had worked for them. It was a lie, of course, but they believed him. Now, my plan to beat Donald Trump is to start by looking at our history. And I would like to point out one important fact. No sitting senator has ever beaten an incumbent president. Go backwards from Clinton to Reagan to Carter to Roosevelt to Woodrow Wilson, all former governors who defeated incumbent presidents. Just want to make that point clear. Governors are closer to the people. We balance every budget every year and we get things done. As governor of Colorado, we passed the country's first methane regulations to fight climate change. We passed universal background checks and limits on the size of magazines. We achieved near universal health care and expanded reproductive rights, in the process reducing unintended pregnancy by 54%. And we created the #1 economy in the country. In each case, we created a template that could be easily modified into national policy. Now, none of the others running for president have done any of that. They are proposing Medicare for all, a plan that might cost trillions of dollars, a Green New Deal that would guarantee a federal job for everyone, and in some cases, they advocate for border policies that would play right into the hands of President Trump. Now, meanwhile, this president lurches from one crisis to another. His tariff wars have cost American farmers billions of dollars. He's already had to ask taxpayers for a $28 billion bailout. Trump's tariffs are essentially a tax that will cost working families over $1,000 annually in higher prices. Tariff wars are for losers. Trump's tax cuts enriched people with boats and second homes, but they have done nothing for working families who live check to check. He has done nothing to lower health care costs, and in fact, just wants to take it away and replace it with what? With nothing. What we should be doing is raising wages, addressing the high cost of health care, tackling climate change head on, taking on immigration, and keeping guns out of the hands of dangerous people. But if we're going to win back if we're going to win back states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, we need a candidate that has a vision and a record, who has created jobs and knows how to do it. I am the only candidate that has created jobs and made a payroll in small business and dramatically expanded our economy in the entire state of Colorado as a governor. This is a record of achievement, and I believe that will be required to beat Donald Trump in 2020. I got the job done in Colorado, and I would be honored to do it again for America. Thank you.
Good evening. Every candidate tonight shares a few basic attributes. We are more decent, more qualified, and more patriotic than the criminal in the White House. And we all have strong policy ideas and progressive values. But none of that matters. Not unless we break the corporate stranglehold on our government and retake power for all the people. I'm Tom Steyer. I'm running for president to take back our democracy, to restore a government of, by, and for the people. For 10 years across this country, I've run people-first campaigns from the outside that have taken on the corrupt corporate interests, and we've won. I'm the only one in this race that can go toe-to-toe with Mr. Trump on the economy and call him out for what he is. He's a fraud, and he's a failure. I spent 30 years of my life building a successful global business from scratch, which is a lot more than Mr. Trump ever did. His pattern of fraud is simple. He lies. He racks up the debt, and he sticks other people with the bill. In this case, that's us, the American taxpayers. Like clockwork, his policies are blowing up in his face, and you are paying the price. Trump's trade war cost Iowans $2 billion last year. That's $630 for every person in this state. And it's getting worse. He knew his trade war was going to hurt you, so he papered it over with a handout of your own hard-earned tax dollars. Days ago, China said they wouldn't buy any more U.S. ag equipment. They devalued their currencies, and it shook the markets. Guess who got hurt? Not Mr. Trump, not Mr. McConnell. Iowa farmers, Iowa families, Iowa's trying to make ends meet. Your families continue to suffer from Mr. Trump's ill-conceived, ill-executed, and unstrategic trade war. Growing up, my mother taught me a simple truth. Actions speak louder than words. She was a teacher from Minnesota who taught in the public schools of New York and the Brooklyn House of Detention. My father was the first person in his family to go to college. He stopped his legal career to go into the Navy in World War II, and he prosecuted the Nazis at Nuremberg. If actions speak louder than words, then let me tell you what I've done. I founded one of the largest grassroots political organizations in this country. I've gone toe-to-toe with big oil and big tobacco in the ballot box, and we've won. We closed a corporate tax loophole for billions of dollars and sent it to the public schools. And we've created over 500,000 union jobs. We can and we must fix the way the democracy works. That's why I called for term limits in Congress, so our government works for the American people again. Speaking of term limits, I have 6 words for you. Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Chuck Grassley. Every Democrat has good ideas, but if you want to get anything done, we have to take back our democracy first. Without that, progressive values are empty promises. Without that, our policies are pipe dreams. And without that, none of us is truly free. As an outsider, as a capitalist, as a progressive activist, unlike any candidate in this race, I've been in this fight here in Iowa. Registering voters, knocking on doors, turning people out, and winning since the beginning of 2014. The secret is you. When we put the American people back in the driver's seat, there's nothing we can't achieve. The right to health care, the right to free education from pre-K through college, the right to a living wage, the right to clean air and clean water. When the people are in power, our future is brighter than anyone in this audience can imagine. Now we're called on to win the biggest, most sweeping victory of our lives. That's our mission. That's what we're going to do. It's what we're called to do. Thank you. God bless you.
Hello, I'm Joe Sestak, and I wore the cloth of the nation for 31 years, in war and peace. Over 80 countries, including the White House, when I went to work for Director of Defense Policy for President Clinton. On the ground at the beginning of the war in Afghanistan, head of the Navy's anti-terrorism unit. And then I came out, took command of an aircraft carrier battle group for the strikes against Afghanistan. But when I arrived with my 10,000 sailors in the Arabian Sea, waiting for us there was an international armada, twice as large as the American carrier battle group I commanded. And the Minister of Defense of Italy said why they all had come. America has been attacked, and we will be there for you. We have the world with us against evil. Because there in that distant sea was a realization that America's greatest power is our power to convene, to bring together nations and peoples of the world for a common cause that serves us all. Whether it's dire poverty, human rights atrocities, global recessions, or collective security, we founded and lit the flame of justice in a global concord. And then presidents, from John F. Kennedy to Ronald Reagan, understood that it was this global concord that provided for our peace, our prosperity, and our freedoms here at home. And that's why the sculpture that is closest to the Oval Office today is not of an American. It is of a foreigner, to remind the president that our retreat from the world would be disastrous to our American dream. And so today, as we come home behind walls thinking we're going to be great here, when we were great abroad, to protect our freedom is the danger that we have. But I'll never forget when I was told to take my aircraft carrier battle group out of the Arabian Sea into the Persian Gulf, and only 2 of those countries went with me through the Straits of Hormuz to begin the precursor strikes against Iraq. And the reason only 2 went was because Democrats and Republicans alike, who had voted for that tragic war in Iraq, could not explain how it would end before it began. But those other countries knew, and they knew it was not in support of our ideals. That is why we need, with this world greatly changing, somebody who understands with breadth and depth this global world to convene it once again for challenges of climate change. And in a liberal world order, China, that believes its values of might and right should rule this world. But we also need someone who understands here at home how to walk in the shoes of American citizens. I learned that as they rolled my 4-year-old daughter out of Walter Reed Military Hospital when I was still in the military. We couldn't get the brain cancer, they said. And when asked, they gently replied, she has about 90 days. But that little warrior beat that scourge. And I had to pay you back. So I changed from being an independent, I became a Democrat. I went home and ran in a nearly 2-to-1 Republican district. I won, became the second Democrat since the Civil War. And then I won my second election by 20 points with a 100% NARAL pro-choice record. An F from NRA, but they re-elected me up by 20 points and I didn't spend a dime on a campaign ad because we learned to disagree well. Called The Most Productive Congressman by Steny Hoyer in my class. Of 19 pieces of bipartisan legislation passed. Why? Come aboard an aircraft carrier for me and understand why I'm really running. My daughter's brain cancer came back last year and that's why I'm late. She's in a safe harbor today. There's 5,000 sailors on an aircraft carrier. You know what their average age is? 19 and a half. If you don't think the youth of America are great, come aboard an aircraft carrier. They run a nuclear reactor. They fix your plane. And you never ask a question. You don't even kick the tires. And then they strap you into the plane. They connect you to a catapult. They push that button. Off you go into the night. Walt Disney has no ride better than that. But then they say suddenly, stop. Special forces have been ambushed. We need you to get an F-18, not an EA-6B. And then you see what America most yearns for. A young 19-and-a-half-year-old youth from Iowa, Pennsylvania, comes out from that deck at 0200 in the morning, goes under the belly of the plane, and unhooks it from this catapult. that flips you into the air because no pilot will shut off his or her engine until they know they've been unhooked from that catapult. Because if you turn off your engines and suddenly they push that button, you go off for a final great ride of your life. So when that youth unhooks that catapult, they walk in front of that plane and give a very simple signal that says everything this country yearns for. Go ahead, you can trust me, because I'm willing to be accountable. And if I made a mistake and you suddenly, after shutting off your engines, go overboard to your death, you're going right through me. And I'm going overboard with you, Owen. I have met few who have ever felt anyone would stand in front of that plane for them from Washington, D.C. I want to stand in front of that plane for Americans, because if we do not have a united America, we can never meet the defining challenges of our times abroad or here at home. That is our Hobson's choice. Not just to elect a president, but someone to heal our nation's soul, where people believe you are accountable to them above party, above special interest, above anything else but them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Clear Lake. Thank you, Iowa. Wow. What a reception. You know how to make somebody feel welcome. I'm going to have to keep coming back up here. I'm so glad to be with you. If you haven't been following our campaign yet, my name's Pete Buttigieg. Most people just stick with Mayor Pete. And I'm running for president because I think our country is running out of time. But I also think it's not too late. We're living in a moment that's even more serious than what the Trump presidency represents. Because you got to ask yourself, how does a guy like Donald Trump ever get within cheating distance of the Oval Office to begin with? That doesn't happen in ordinary times. Happens if we're already in crisis, and we have seen it. We've seen it in my part of the industrial Midwest. We've seen it in my generation, living with school shootings and climate change and an economy that doesn't work for most of us, where GDP can go up, stock market can go up, and life expectancy can go down. Tells you something is deeply troubled in this country. And it means we're not going to be able to fix it by recycling the same arguments that have dominated Washington for as long as I've been alive. We've got to do something completely different. Now, I'm excited to be in this part of Iowa because this is a great place to remind the country and each other that there is no such thing as a permanently red state or county or precinct. But we got to find a new vocabulary, and the times we're living in call on us to organize around our values. So now is the time we break down the idea that values is a conservative idea, especially in our times. Values like freedom are not conservative values, they're American values, and today they have progressive implications. We're the ones ready to secure freedom in a world where freedom requires that you have access to health care. That's freedom too. Not just cutting a regulation somewhere. Freedom comes by way of education, which is why we need a Secretary of Education who actually believes in public education. You're not free in this country if you're not able to organize for a good day's pay, for a good day's work. That's why we stand with organized labor. And women are not free in this country when their access to reproductive health is being dictated by male bosses and male politicians. So don't let anybody tell you that the other side is the party of freedom. And the same thing, by the way, goes for patriotism. We're going to break that spell that has people thinking that the flag belongs on one side of the aisle. The flag that was attached to my shoulder when I stepped off of that C-17 in Afghanistan was not a Republican flag, it was an American flag. Symbolizing, among other things, the idea that we are able and indeed sometimes required to be critical of our leadership, and when we do, nobody will question our loyalty to the republic for which it stands, let alone tell us to go back to where we came from. Let's talk about patriotism. Let's talk about national security. There is no national security when we don't have racial justice, let alone when we have a president who is coddling white nationalists. White nationalism is a national security threat to this country. We got to name it for what it is, and we got to fight it. So is climate disruption. That's a security challenge. So is cybersecurity and election security. And we're not going to meet these 21st century challenges with a 17th century solution like building a wall. We're going to do something different. Now, I got about 30 seconds left, so let's talk about political strategy. If we want to win, we can't look like we're the party of back to normal. What we have now isn't working, but normal wasn't working either. That's part of how we got here. And we're not going to win going on this president's show and trying to compete with him, because on his show, and I don't know what to call it, a horror show, a reality show, a couple other words come to mind that I can't say in polite company. But if you're on his show, even when you're winning, you're losing, which is why what we're going to do is pick up the remote and change the channel. So can I count on you to help us change the channel? Can I look to you to help us win not just the era, but the future of this country? And are we willing to do it in the name of our values? And with the fire in our belly and with the hope in our hearts, we are going to fix things in this country. We're going to do it together, and I am proud to do it with you every step of the way. Thank you, Democrats. I'll see you on the panel. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Aloha. Aloha, Iowa Democrats. It's so great to be here with all of you. Thank you so much for the great work that you have been doing and that you continue to do as we head into this critical election. Now, it's been a dark week for us in this country. We've seen great loss and we've seen great tragedy, and it breaks our hearts to see how this country that we love is being torn apart. And it breaks our hearts because we care for each other. We care for our fellow Americans. And it breaks our hearts to see that we have a president in the White House who is abusing his power, who is misusing his position to stoke fear, to stoke racism, to stoke bigotry, all for his own personal, selfish political gain. It breaks my heart because this is not who we are. This is not who we are as Americans. This is not who we are as a country. And it's important for us during these times when we are feeling such despair and when we feel that all hope sometimes is lost to remember who we are and the values and the principles that bind us together in this country, the values and principles enshrined in our Constitution that remind us we are all created equal, that we all are guaranteed these freedoms and rights, a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We are seeing the dangerous consequences of where this divisive path takes us, and we are choosing to stand firmly in those values that unite us as we build this path forward, recognizing that, yes, our country is far from perfect. We still have a lot of work to do. But when we focus on this unifying principle, what we in Hawaii call the spirit of aloha, this is what lights that path forward. Aloha means so much more than hello and goodbye, as some of you may be familiar. What it really means is love and respect and a recognition that we are all connected, that we are all children of God. We are all brothers and sisters, regardless of the color of our skin or where we come from or who we love or how we worship or if we worship. It is in this spirit that I'm asking and offering to lead as your president and commander-in-chief. It is in this spirit that we together can stand united and lift our voices for each other, inspired by this unifying spirit of love towards that more perfect union that we always strive for. It is in this spirit that we can bring about the kind of systemic change that we need to see to make sure that every sick American in this country is able to get the quality health care that they need and deserve. It is in this spirit we can bring about the kind of change we need to protect our planet, to address climate change, make sure that each of us has clean water to drink and clean air to breathe, things that are essential to every single one of us. We can bring about criminal justice reform, comprehensive immigration reform, deal with the great challenges of our time when we stand together and against anyone who seeks to divide us, because this has happened for far too long, and we, the people, have suffered as a result. Now, I want to take a moment here and recognize the veterans who are here in the room and anyone who has a military family member who has served. Would you mind just standing for a second and letting us thank you for your service? Thank you for your sacrifice. You embody, thank you so much. You embody what it means to put service above self. You have experienced, as I have, what it means to see the diverse fabric of this country come together in the uniform that we wear, united with that singular focus on putting service above self, putting the interests of our country and the American people above all else. As veterans, we also know the cost of war. And as your president and commander-in-chief, I commit to ending these wasteful regime change wars, making it so that not a single more of our brothers and sisters loses their life in these counterproductive wars, and instead focus on investing our resources, our limited taxpayer dollars, on serving the needs of our people right here at home. We've got to get our priorities straight in this country. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here. For more information, visit Tulsi2020.com. Look forward to seeing you back here again soon. Thank you all so much. Have a great night. Aloha. Aloha.
So I gotta tell you, the reason why I love Iowa is because you know how to fight and you know how to win campaigns. And who's gonna beat Steve King next election? Iowa and JD. He's gonna do it. And what about Teresa Greenfield? Is she gonna be in the US Senate in 2020? Yes, she is. And thank you for sending Cindy and Abby. They've made such a difference already. I gotta tell you, I got my start in politics because I had a grandmother who loved politics. She was a woman who never got to go to college, and she was a secretary in our state legislature. But she spent the next 2 generations organizing women to get involved in politics, to go door to door, to knock on doors, stuff envelopes, make phone calls. My first campaign experience was when I was about Henry's age, about 11 years old. And I'm in a hot campaign headquarters where everyone's stuffing envelopes. And the ladies are all wearing sleeveless dresses, and they're just stuffing. And as an 11-year-old girl, I am mesmerized by their arms, those jiggly arms. They're just jiggling. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I want to be just like them someday. Jiggly arms for everybody. So my grandmother taught me a lot of things. The one thing she taught me is that nothing is impossible. Nothing is impossible if you're willing to put your mind to it, if you're willing to work hard and never give up. And you know what? I learned that lesson from her. So if you want to get something done in Washington, just tell me it's impossible, and I promise you I'll get it done. Because that's what I've done every step of my career. When I first ran for Congress in 2006, everyone said it was impossible. My pollster said, Kirsten, you can never win New York 20. I said, yeah, but I could raise the money, get my message out, I could clearly win. He said, Kirsten, you can't win. There's more cows than Democrats. You just can't win. But sure enough, we won. And we won again, and the second time we won by a 24-point margin. So I know how to win in red places and blue places and purple places. As a freshman senator, when I went to the Senate, I met with a man who was serving in our military. He was willing to die for our country, but he was told every day he had to lie about who he was and who he loved. I went to Democrats and said, we need to repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And they said to me, Kirsten, why are you doing this now? It's so inconvenient. And I said, when are civil rights ever convenient? You do it because it's the right thing to do. And so I stood up to the Pentagon and we repealed it. Not impossible. When I met with the 9/11 first responders, they said they needed desperate health care. And they said, it's impossible, Kirsten, no one will ever spend money in New York State. But sure enough, we went and we knocked on every door. We lifted up their voices. Just last week, we made the 9/11 health and compensation bill permanent, not impossible. So the only question that Iowa asks me, the only question is, can you beat President Trump? Yes, we can. It is not impossible. We will beat him at the ballot box. Now, President Trump has done some of the worst things I can imagine as president. He's divided us. He's spewed hate and division everywhere he goes. He has separated and divided this country in a way. So we need a president who's brave. We need a president who will take on the battles that no one else will. We need a president who will bring Congress together to pass the Green New Deal, put a price on carbon, get health care as a right and not a privilege, take on the NRA, and end gun violence in this country. These goals are not impossible. We will together defeat Trump and get things done, because that is who we are as Iowa Democrats. We will defeat Trump. God bless you.
Good evening, everybody. Everyone, there are a lot of wonderful people here, a lot of VIPs, but I want to introduce you first to the most important VIPs in my life. First of all, my wife of 25 years, Chirlane McCray. And to everyone in this room who cares about mental health care, Chirlane has made it her business to break down the stigma that's keeping people from getting the mental health care they need. We've got to fix that in America. We've got to fix that in Iowa, don't we? And I want to introduce you a recent college graduate, my son Dante. You don't mind if I'm a proud papa for a moment, do you? Dante was also a New York State debate champion. And I had a secret weapon a few days ago because he helped prepare me before I went on Sean Hannity's show. So I was able to put Sean in his place because I had a good coach. Thank you, Dante. So I want to do some quick audience participation. First of all, look around the room. All around this room, people are making a difference. Agents of change. People are helping their communities. People are helping this party. Give your neighbor a round of applause, everyone. And a little more audience participation. Let's be clear about who we are as Democrats. I'm going to ask you who we are, who we're not. Are we the party of working people? Are we the party of labor unions? Are we the party of equality? Are we the party of change? Are we the party of big donors? Are we the party of big corporations? Are we the party of the status quo? Okay, I agree with you. And this is what we have to do in this election. Democrats have to be clear that we are in it for working people, and we're going to make change in this country. And I believe it because I run the nation's largest city. It's not an easy place. When I became mayor, I said we were going to make a lot of changes for everyday people. They said it could not be done. Time and time again, I heard those big ideas will never amount to nothing. But we gave pre-K to every single child for free in New York City. We made sure that we got the $15 minimum wage for working people. We got paid sick days. And then we went farther because we had hundreds of thousands of people with no health insurance. So now in New York, we are guaranteeing health care for anyone who does not have insurance. And one more thing for all the hard-working people out there, we're going to do something in New York that should have been done in America a long time ago. Only country in the world that doesn't guarantee people any time off. We are passing a law this year guaranteeing 2 weeks paid vacation for every working person. And that should be all over America, shouldn't it? Pre-K for our children all over America, $15 minimum wage. These are the changes we need. Now, I know change can happen. I am running for president because I've seen change. I've made change. I know it can happen. But my friends, I want to caution, because there's a lot of voices of conventional wisdom that are telling us don't be too bold. Don't sound like you want to rock the boat too much. If you turn on the TV, a lot of time the commentators will say the only way we win is if we don't sound like we're trying to do too much for people. Doesn't make sense to me. Rural Iowa doesn't need just a little change. Rural Iowa needs mental health services for everyone who needs it, every family who needs it. Rural Iowa needs hospitals to be kept open, not for them to close. Rural Iowa needs schools to be kept open, needs pre-K for the children. Rural Iowa needs universal health care more than most places because people are not going to get these things unless there's universal health care. When we are bold, we inspire people, we move people. Folks don't come out to vote because they hear a nice bland message, do they? They come out to vote when they hear passion and they believe change can happen, and that's the party we need to be. Now I'm going to say something controversial. The man we're all here to beat, he told working people he was going to change their lives. He told them he was going to break the status quo. He told them he was going to rock the boat. And he rocked it a little too far, I think we all would agree. But he got people stirred because he said things would change. We need to be the party that says things will change once and for all. And we can do that. We can do that, my friends. And I'll finish with this. I want to say as a New Yorker, I'm really, really sorry you got to know Donald Trump. I'm really sorry about it. But this New Yorker is happy to get rid of him for you. Thank you. God bless you all.
Wonderful to be here. It's been wonderful to hear all my fellow candidates who are here this afternoon. And I have agreed with more of them and more of the things that they said than I disagreed with. But I also think we need to face some facts. We've been saying these things, and we lost last time. We've been saying many of these things. We've been promoting these same kinds of political values, and we've been losing congressional seats too often. We've been losing senatorial seats too often. And so I want to talk to you about the kind of transformation we need in this country that will only happen if we have a transformation in our politics, and it will only happen if we as Democrats embrace a more transformational vision. Ladies and gentlemen, I read an interview with Jared Kushner, and Jared Kushner said that he had been in a McDonald's with his father-in-law. And he told his father-in-law, there are so many angry people out there, he said, we could harness all that anger and we could make you president. And I thought to myself when I read that, there are so many good people out there. There's so many decent people out there. There's so many loving people out there. We could harness all that and change the world. The American people are good people. The American people are loving people. But the American people's goodness and love has not been channeled through American politics in the way that it should be, and for a long time. And the only way that we're going to do that, ladies and gentlemen, is if we get really way more deep and way more real, because love tells truth. We have an enemy here that is more than one political candidate. We have collectivized fear, hatred, bigotry, racism, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism. There are a lot more people in this country who love than who hate, but those who hate, hate with seriousness, and they are politicized. We need to take out love. The only way you're going to beat big lies is with some big truth. The Democratic Party is only going to win this election, and the Democratic Party is only going to win our future if we start telling some big truths that too often we have not told. The truth is, 40 years ago, we started acquiescing to an economic system that has corrupted our government and hijacked our value system, that said that short-term profits for large multinational corporate entities came before the advocacy for the people of the United States, for the people of the world, and the planet on which we stand. Too often, Democrats have been proposing policies that will help assuage the pain. Democrats need to call and challenge all those forces that make all that pain inevitable. But we cannot do that if we too are making all the money from those same health insurance companies and taking the money from Big Pharma and taking money from the gun manufacturers, taking money from oil and gas, taking money from chemical companies, taking money from the defense contractors. Ladies and gentlemen, people can smell it. People can smell it. That's the problem. Donald Trump did not win just because a few people were so passionate about Donald Trump. And if he wins again, it will not just be because of a few people who are so passionate about Donald Trump. He won last time, and if he wins again, he would win again because of so many people who just didn't vote. And they didn't vote because they didn't really feel, they knew he was lying, but they didn't really feel we were deeply telling the truth. And that's why those of us who are not from careers entrenched within that system have something very important to bring here. We have not taken corporate donations. We are not of the system. I am not prosecuting just a case against Donald Trump. I am prosecuting a case against the system that delivered Donald Trump. It is that level of truth-telling that is going to win this election. Otherwise, we might win, but even if we beat him, those same forces will be back in 22, and they will be back in 24. We need to rise up. We need to be real. We need to be real about the sea of unnecessary suffering in millions of American children. We need to be real about the fact that a military-industrial complex and short-term profits for defense contractors does more to determine our national security agenda than does waging peace. And only 2 people on this campaign are even talking about that. We're both girls. Ladies and gentlemen, get real, and the Democrats will win. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Good evening. It's great to be here in North Iowa. I want to thank everybody for hosting us here at the Wing Ding. Your reputation precedes you. Look, I wanted to come and just spend 5 minutes talking to you about the country that I believe that we need to become. We know the country that we have been and that we are. If we were to go around this room, I have no doubt that in each of your families you can tell a story of hard work, of the kind of values that unite us, of love of country, of faith, of family, of basic compassion and respect for other people, that together have made ours the greatest nation on this planet. The events of the last week reminded us that it is not a foregone conclusion that we're going to keep getting better. I'm running for president because I feel tremendously blessed with the opportunity that I've had in the United States. And I want to make sure that everybody can have that same kind of opportunity. I grew up with my grandmother that had come over from Mexico when she was 7 years old as an orphan, worked as a maid, a cook, and a babysitter, raised my mom as a single parent. My mom raised my brother Joaquin and me as a single parent. My brother and I, we're twins, by the way. He says the way to tell us apart is that I'm a minute uglier than he is, which is not true. We are proud products of the public schools of Texas. We both had a chance to go to Stanford and then Harvard Law School together because I can't get rid of him, and then become the first in our family to be professionals as attorneys and both go into public service. I had the chance to serve as mayor of my hometown of San Antonio, the 7th largest city in the country, and then as Secretary of Housing and Urban Development under Barack Obama. I'm running for president because I believe that we need to move forward as one nation with one destiny, and that destiny for our beautiful country in the years to come is to be the smartest, the healthiest, the fairest, and the most prosperous nation on earth. The smartest, the healthiest, the fairest, and the most prosperous nation on earth. If we're going to be the smartest nation on earth, it means universal pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds. It means improving K through 12 education, paying teachers what they deserve, reducing class sizes, making sure that special needs children can get the education that they deserve, reinvesting in trade programs in our high schools, and tuition-free public state universities, community colleges, and job training and certification programs, because jobs require more knowledge and more skill than ever before. It means reimagining our justice system if we're going to be a fairer nation, sentencing reform, investing in public defenders, cash bail reform, making sure that we have greater accountability and transparency in police departments across the United States so that you're treated the same no matter who you are. It means passing the Equality Act so that you can't be discriminated against no matter your sexual orientation or gender identity, and passing the Equal Rights Amendment and ensuring that women get equal pay for equal work. It means protecting a woman's right to choose when it's under assault right now. If we're going to be the healthiest nation on earth, it means changing our healthcare system to one where everybody gets health care, that we build off of Medicare, and we make sure that it's not the profit motive of big pharmaceuticals and big insurance companies, but our care for people that ensures they get the health care and the medication that they need. If we're going to be the most prosperous nation on earth, it has to mean prosperity for everybody, for urban America and rural America. It has to mean raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, investing in the ability to organize our labor unions so that they can ensure that people get compensated well for the hard work that they do. And it means a tax code that rewards not the wealthy and big corporations, but people who have to work for a living, and investing in affordable housing. It means reforming our immigration system to fix it so that we can harness the potential of immigrants in our country, and also addressing the most existential threat to our country, which is climate change. My first executive order, if I'm elected president, will be to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord, and then follow that up with investment in a Green New Deal to create jobs and protect our planet. I hope that over the next several months that you will be great ambassadors for my campaign, for those of y'all that support me, for those of y'all that are still shopping. I hope that y'all will stay tuned to JuliánCastro.com and spread the word. I believe that in the months to come, I can get stronger and stronger, and that we can win the Iowa caucus on February 3rd and say adios to Donald Trump in January of 2021. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much. It's great to be in Iowa. First, let me say, we've just returned from a trip to Louisville, Kentucky. After what we saw in El Paso and what we experienced in Dayton, Ohio last week, we put a caravan together with Moms Demand Action and myself, and we went through Ohio and we picked up moms, and we went down to Louisville, Kentucky, where Mitch McConnell lives. And we took the fight to his backyard, telling him that we need gun reform in the United States of America, and we need it now. We need it now. People are dying on the streets of this country, getting killed by weapons that were made for battlefields, not neighborhoods in places like Dayton, Ohio. The number one obligation that we have as elected officials, whether you're a councilman or a congressman or a president, is to keep the people of this country safe. And this country will never be safe until we get these weapons of war off of the streets of the United States of America. I pledge to you that we will get this done finally in the United States of America. But we also have to secure our economy. I come from Northeast Ohio. 75% of the American people still live paycheck to paycheck. It's time for us to double union membership in the United States of America so we can rebuild the middle class. I want us to win the economy of the future, build electric vehicles and solar panels and wind turbines right here in the United States of America. That's how we rebuild the middle class. There's going to be 10 million electric vehicles made in the next 10 years. I want at least half of those made in the United States. And I want those to go to rural America. I want them to go to the old steel country, old coal, old textile countries, where these communities have fallen behind for the last 30 years. We're going to get that done. We will win the new economy. I can promise you that. I want us to secure our kids' education. And that's why in my education proposal for K through 12, I'm making sure there is a mental health counselor in every school in the United States that needs one. I want to make sure that there is trauma-informed care, social and emotional learning, after school, summer school. We got to start taking care of our kids. They need us. We are not going to address and secure our safety through climate change. If we only convert our economy over to wind and solar, I am making a proposal for us to convert our industrial agriculture system over to a regenerative, sustainable agriculture system here in the United States. Let's start sequestering carbon in our own earth so that we can preserve our kids' future. And we will set up teams to make sure that we implement regenerative agriculture so that we can be drought resistant, flood resistant, and we can start to heal our planet. We've got a lot of work to do, but I'm in a fighting mood. I'm Irish. Vice President Biden, I'm Irish. You know the old Irish saying? Is this a private fight or can anyone get into it? I'm going to tell you a quick story. We were down at the Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville, Kentucky. And Muhammad Ali, there's this great story. He was walking down the street in Kentucky. Someone came up to him and said, "Champ, I saw you fight when I was a kid." He said, "Oh yeah?" And the kid said, "Yeah, it was great. You got knocked down in the 3rd round." Champ said, "Wasn't my fight." He said, "No, I remember. My dad took me. I'll never forget it. But you did get knocked down in the 3rd round." Champ said, "Wasn't my fight. I ain't never been knocked down. I'm either up or I'm getting up." Democrats have never been knocked down. We're either up or we're getting up. Iowa has never been knocked down. You're either up or you're getting up. America has never, ever been knocked down. We're either up or we're getting up. Thank you, Iowa.
I'm sorry that I cannot be with you in Iowa, but as you know, I'm here in El Paso following a very horrific and tragic act of terrorism in our community. Last Saturday, 22 people in the community of El Paso, some from Ciudad Juarez, our sister city, were murdered because of who they are and where we live. In the largest binational community in the Western Hemisphere, in a city that is 85% Mexican American, following the kind of fear and intimidation used by people throughout this country, including by our president, to describe those who are different as somehow dangerous to this country, to warn of invasions and infestations, to respond as the president did to those who talk about shooting or killing immigrants with laughter, giving an open invitation to this kind of hatred and racism and intolerance and the violence that invariably follows. I'm here with my community and with those families who have suffered such extraordinary losses, with the survivors, to make sure that those who are not yet through the woods, that we're doing everything we can to make sure that they are strong, that they are fortified by our encouragement and our love and this beautiful community coming together. And I'm also here to make sure that at this moment, we do not allow ourselves to be defined by this act of terror, this act of hatred, this act of violence, but instead by the way in which this community overcomes this attack and also sets an example, I hope, for the rest of the country. A country that has never been more divided or more highly polarized. This community's ability to see our differences not only as something to be tolerated or respected, but as embraced as the foundation of our success, of our strength, and yes, our safety and our security. El Paso being one of the safest cities, if not the safest cities in the United States of America, not despite the fact that we're a city of immigrants, but because of the fact that we're a city of immigrants. It's important for me to be here and to share this story here in our community and throughout the country. So I appreciate the invitation to join you. I'm sad that I can't be with you in person, but I'm also appreciative of all of the well wishes, the encouragement, the love that you have sent our way here in El Paso. Know that this community is grateful and that I hope to see you in the very near future.
So that goes to tell you that Congressman Beto O'Rourke is here with us in heart and spirit, but he feels being home is just as important to be at those funerals and those visitations. That's a quality of a statesman, and that's what we have in all of our candidates tonight, the quality of statesmen and women.
Thank you all very much. My wife, Jane. Let me thank all of the people in this room for the important work you are doing every single day. Together here in Iowa and all across this country, we will defeat the most dangerous president in the history of this country. Together, we will end the racism and the sexism and the Islamophobia and the homophobia and all the other phobias that this president exhibits. And we will end white nationalism in this country as well. Together, we will protect American democracy and the rule of law, and together we will create a government that works for all and not just the 1%. But let me be as clear as I can be. We will not defeat Trump unless we have an agenda that speaks to the pain and reality of the working families of this country, millions of whom are working longer hours for lower wages. We will not defeat Trump unless we have the courage to take on the powerful corporate interests who dominate our economic and political life. The American people are begging Congress for common sense gun safety legislation. And that is why we have to have the courage to take on the NRA. The American people understand that climate change is real and that is causing devastating problems in our country and all over the world. And that is why we have to have the courage to take on the greed and recklessness of the fossil fuel industry. The American people understand that in the year 2019, we must make public colleges and universities tuition-free and cancel all student debt in this country. But in order to do that, we are going to have to end an absurd tax system that allows Wall Street and major corporations to get huge tax breaks. And the American people understand, increasingly, more and more every day, that health care is a human right, not a privilege. And every poll that I have seen tells me that the American people agree with many of us in this room that we must pass Medicare for all. But to do that, we are going to have to take on the pharmaceutical industry, which charges us the highest prices in the world for the medicine that we need. To do that, we are going to have to take on the whole healthcare industry, which made $100 billion in profit last year. And the only way I know how we take on Wall Street and the drug companies and the insurance companies and the fossil fuel industry and the NRA is when we have an unprecedented grassroots movement of millions of Americans standing up, fighting back, and demanding an economy and a government that works for all of us and not just wealthy campaign contributors. Brothers and sisters, in this unprecedented moment in American history, we need an unprecedented grassroots movement. Join our effort and let us reclaim American democracy and a government that works for all people. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So I don't want to use the 5 minutes in the way you would normally think it should be used in an event like this. I know the 2020 elections doesn't stand for the year, but the number of us that are running. I actually just want to use my 5 minutes to point something out that we cannot let normalize. We saw a video from Beto O'Rourke. He's not here right now. And he didn't miss this because of a family obligation or because of a conflict in schedule. He missed this because Americans were slaughtered. I worry that in this election, as we talk about the issues that drive us, that the values that are underneath those issues is what we need to hit on again and again and again. This election is not a referendum on one guy in one office. It takes no courage or, God bless America, you don't need to be a brilliant genius, as this president says he is, to know that he's a problem. This is not a referendum on one guy in one office. This is a referendum on us and who are we going to be to each other. This is one of those moral moments in our nation that's going to define the character of our country, and this is a week where I will not let the slaughter of our fellow citizens just disappear within the next media cycle. And I want to use the 3 minutes I have left just to tell you what I believe bonds us together, because we were a nation that when 4 girls were killed in a bombing in Birmingham, we raised our moral conscience and our moral imagination and transformed this nation to more compassionate, more empathetic. When women threw themselves out of windows at the shirtwaist factory fire, we changed workers' rights and workers' rules. We responded, and this has to be that moment in America. And so I want to ask you, for me, let me use my last seconds to just tell you that it's not just the mass shootings. It's the fact that every day in America, people are being slaughtered in communities like mine where the sound of gunfire is so regular. For 10 years, almost 10 years, I lived in some high-rise public housing projects. The tenant president of those buildings, her son was murdered in the lobby. He was served in the US military, came home to this nation, and was killed by gunfire in our country. And I never forget asking her why she still lived in those buildings when her son was murdered there, and she looked at me in this defiant way, and she goes, I still live here because I'm in charge of Homeland Security. She showed this grit and this toughness, this defiance, like Langston Hughes wrote that when he said the poem, there's a dream in this land with its back against the wall. To save the dream for one, we must save the dream for all. And so, I want to leave you with the wisdom of a gun violence survivor, the wisdom of a woman on the 5th floor of the projects, because this road won't be easy. There'll be weeks like this. It was 2004, and I witnessed another boy shot, tried to stop him from bleeding, but he bled out and died. What a gruesome things. I was traumatized. I was angry. I felt like giving up. I felt a darkness fill my heart. And I'll never forget when I bumped into Miss Jones. It was early one morning, the morning after the shooting, and I saw her in the courtyard of the projects. She sees me, and she opens her arms because she sees I'm wounded, and I run over to her, and she holds me, and I started crying on her shoulder, feeling the pain of another black teenager killed in an inner city. And she said 2 words to me over and over, and these are the 2 words I want to leave you with. Over and over, she held me, this strong woman, this defiant woman, a woman that has this incredible love, a woman as a tenet president who knew that you can't lead the people if you don't love the people. What she said to me, rubbing my back, were two words that have nothing to do about religion. They have to do about our civic gospel. She rubbed my back over and over again and said over and over, stay faithful, stay faithful, stay faithful. My fellow Americans, we have come this far by faith. We have overcome worse times and darker moments than this. And now more than ever, we need Americans that will stand up with faith in our country, faith in our ideals, faith in each other, and come together again and stand together and work together and love together and overcome his darkness with our light. This is the call of our country, and it is time for the United States of America to rise again. Thank you.
Hello, Iowa. Holy cow. It's incredible to be back. I owe you all so much. I was here last year and on the way to Iowa just this week. I found out that my campaign is going to be on the debate stage in the fall, so thank you, Iowa. As most of you know, I'm not a career politician, I'm an entrepreneur and problem solver, and I am running for president to solve the biggest problem of our time, which is, why is Donald Trump our president? How did Donald Trump win Iowa by 9 points? How did he win Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, even Wisconsin? If you turn on cable news, you'll get a series of explanations. Russia, racism, Facebook, Hillary Clinton, and some cocktail. But I looked at the numbers, and the numbers tell a different story. The reason why Donald Trump is our president today is this. We automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and 40,000 right here in Iowa. How many of you know someone who lost their job in manufacturing over the last number of years? And unfortunately, what happened to those workers will now spread to retail, call centers, truck drivers, and on through your communities. How many of you have noticed stores closing where you live here in Iowa? And why are those stores closing? It's a one-word answer. Amazon, that's right. Amazon's like a giant suction, sucking up $20 billion in business and vitality out of your communities. How much did Amazon pay in taxes last year? That's right, that is the math, Iowa. They suck up $20 billion and you get zero. The most common job in Iowa and around the country is working as a retail cashier. The average retail worker is a 39-year-old woman making between $9 and $10 an hour. I was just at Iowa 80 in Davenport, biggest truck stop in the country. How many of you have been there? Yeah, it's a mean buffet, that's why you go. I know. Oh, there were 5,000 people that stop there every day. My friends in Silicon Valley are working on trucks that can drive themselves. Imagine a country where the trucks never stop. How many people are going to stop at Iowa 80 then? We're in the third inning of the greatest economic transformation in the history of our country, and it brought us Donald Trump. You've seen it on your farms, you've seen it on your main streets, you're going to see it on your highways soon, and it is up to you to do something about it. Now, I look around this room, why are so many presidential candidates coming here to Clear Lake to you all? It's because you hold the future of the country in your hands. Look around you right now. There are about 1,200 Iowans here in this room. I've done the math. Do you know how many Californians each Iowan is worth? 1,000 Californians, each of you. You look around this room. I see 1.2 million Californians. This is how you start a revolution. This room right here. Now, where does the revolution lead? If you've heard anything about me and my campaign, you've heard this. There's an Asian man running for president who wants to give everyone $1,000 a month. Yes. All three of those things are true. It sounds like a gimmick, but this is a deeply American idea. Thomas Paine was for it at our founding. Martin Luther King was fighting for it the day he was assassinated. And one state has had a dividend for almost 40 years where everyone in that state gets between $1,000 and $2,000 a year, no questions asked. And what state is that? And how do they pay for it? And what is the oil of the 21st century? Technology, that's right. In Alaska, they call it the oil check and they love it. We're gonna call this the tech check, and everyone is going to love it. Now, where does the money go? It would go right back into your communities. It would go to car repairs you've been putting off, daycare, Little League signups. It would revitalize your Main Street economies. It would create 40,000 new jobs here in Iowa. It would help give rural areas a real path forward, because we know rural areas are getting sucked dry by today's economy. This is the vision of a trickle-up economy, from our people, our families, and our communities up. And unlike the nonsense out of Washington, D.C., this would work. It is up to you, the people of Iowa, to take this vision to the rest of the country for an economy that works for us, the owners and shareholders of this society, and make it real. That's why I'm here, that's why these other candidates are here, and we do not have that much time. If we don't take advantage of this opportunity, we have 4 more years of the artificial intelligence getting smarter, your stores closing, the self-driving trucks hitting the highways, and we cannot let that happen. So I'm asking you, Iowa, to take this vision to the rest of the country, because the opposite of Donald Trump is an Asian man who likes math. Thank you very much. Thank you, Iowa. Love you guys. Let's make America think harder.
It is so great to be with you. This is historic. I can't believe I'm standing on this stage. Thank you. And I have to first, I'm going to just ask you, I hope to earn your support that you will caucus with me on election night. But let me just say that I think we all know this is an inflection moment in the history of our country. It's a moment in time that is requiring us each and collectively to look in a mirror and ask a question. That question being, who are we? And I think we all know part of the answer to that question is we are better than this. So this is a moment in time for us to fight for the best of who we are, and fight we will, and this is not a new fight for us. We fight for our country. That's the nature of who we are. And so we're going to fight because we love our country, and we know its promise, and we know we are better than this. And I'll tell you, I come from a family of fighters. My parents met when they were active in the civil rights movement. My sister and I joke we grew up surrounded by a bunch of adults who spent full time marching and shouting for justice. In fact, my mother, she was tough. My mother was all of 5 feet tall. But if you ever met her, you would have thought she was 10 feet tall. And she was the kind of parent who, if she ever came home complaining about something, our mother would look at you with a straight face, maybe one hand on a hip, and she would say, well, what are you going to do about it? So I decided to run for president of the United States. There you go. So let's talk about the current occupant of the White House for a moment, shall we? But we must, it's context. This is a guy who came in on a campaign that was about looking backward. This is about a guy who came in and has been in office using the power of the voice of the President of the United States in a way that has been about trying to divide us, in a way that has been about trying to sow hate and division among us. But see, we know that one of the greatest strengths about who we are as a people is in our core, in our heart. We know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. So we're not going to buy what he's trying to sell, because we know dude got to go. Dude got to go. So we are going to fight, knowing that we have so much more in common than what separates us. And the way I think about it is what I call the 3 in the morning thought. You know, when you wake up in the middle of the night with that thought that's been weighing on you? Well, for the vast majority of us, when we wake up thinking that thought, it is never through the lens of the party with which we're registered to vote. For the vast majority of us, when we wake up thinking that thought, it is never through the lens of some simplistic demographic some pollster put us in. And for the vast majority of us, when we wake up thinking that thought, it usually has to do with one of just a very few things. Our personal health, the health of our children, our parents. For so many, can I get a job, keep a job, pay the bills by the end of the month, retire with dignity? For our students, can I pay off those student loans? For so many families, can I help get my family member off their opioid addiction? And for our farmers, can I keep my business thriving instead of having to look at bankruptcy because of this man's fragile ego that has prompted trade policy by tweet? So this is a moment in time for us to fight for the America we believe in. And in the America we believe in, you should only have to work one job to have a roof over your head and put food on the table. In the America we believe in, we will acknowledge a climate crisis and treat it with a sense of urgency. In the America we believe in, a woman will have power over her own body and the right to make decisions about what is in the best interest of her and her family. In the America we believe in, all people will have health care and cost will not be the barrier. In the America we believe in, we will pay our teachers their value, understanding how they are helping to raise our kids. And we will fight, because this is a fight born not only out of optimism and knowing what can be, unburdened by what has been. This is a fight not only for the soul of our country, born out of love of country, but this is a fight born out of knowing that this is so much worse than what we ever hoped it could be, and we are better than this. And I promise you, Iowa, we are going to win. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Jay Inslee, the jackhammering, bulldozer operating, concrete truck driving, dishwashing, climate change fighting governor of the state of Washington. And I'm here to say this one thing. If you put me on the debate stage with Donald Trump, I will beat him like a $2 mule. And I just want you to know that. Now, of course, we Democrats don't do that to our animals. We treat them with respect. And the reason is I've never met a mule that lies like Donald Trump. I've never met a mule that has cratered the entire ag industry of the United States. And I've never met a mule that was a white nationalist. We need to remove this guy from the White House. Now, I'm really excited to be here tonight, in part because I feel a kinship with a small agricultural town. I raised Trudy and I, my wife, for 46 years. We raised our 3 boys in an apple-growing, red district, agricultural district in eastern Washington. I won 3 out of 4 elections there. I know how to win in small towns. And if I'm given the honor to be President of the United States, the Democratic Party is going to invest in small towns, in elections. Now, you notice I only won 3 out of 4. I want to tell you about the 4th election. I was a freshman legislator in Yakima Valley. A bill came up to ban assault weapons. I knew if I voted to ban assault weapons, I would lose my seat in Congress. But I voted to ban assault weapons. I lost my seat, and I've never regretted that vote for 1 second. Not 1 second. That was the right vote then, and it is the right vote now. And now, as governor of the state of Washington, I've got the NRA on the run big time, and I'll have them on the run across the nation if I'm president of the United States. Now, we've got a historic place to gather tonight, and I just went out to the site of Buddy Holly and Valens and the Big Bopper's loss, and we know there's something special about America, and I think you can call it a music. It's a music of diversity. It's a music of the middle class. It's a music of opportunity. I want you to know in the state of Washington, we're playing that music. I'm proud to have been the guy with the highest minimum wage in the United States, the best paid family leave in the United States, the highest teacher pay raise in the United States, the best gender pay equity in the United States, the first net neutrality bill in the United States. We need to do what we're doing in the state of Washington across this nation. So we've had tremendous success in my state. And as a result of doing these progressive things, you know what you get?
the best economy in the United States. But I know this. We got a challenge out there that will make all these other victories moot if we don't fight together. And there's a woman I think of when I think about this. Her name was Regina Haddock. She runs a nonprofit called Dress for Success in Davenport, or did until the floods came and washed her nonprofit away that takes care of single moms and domestic violence victims. She was a victim of floods that are going to become much more frequent and intense because of the climate crisis. And her tears were just like the tears of Marsha Moss, a woman I met in Agora Hills whose mobile home is now just a molten little pile of aluminum because of the forest fires. And the tears of the people in Miami Beach that are being flooded because of the climate crisis. We are better than this, and I will tell you this. If you give me this high honor, I will make defeating the climate crisis the #1 priority of the United States of America. And it needs to be the #1 priority of the United States of America. I believe this. Now, we got good candidates in this field, but I do believe I'm unique because I'm the only one who's made this statement that it has to be the top priority. My plan to do so has been called the gold standard. It is the most robust plan, and it does what is necessary to build 8 million good union jobs in this country in a clean energy economy. It's committed to that. But I'll mention one other thing. If we are going to beat the climate crisis or do gun safety or anything else, we got to take away the filibuster from Mitch McConnell. We got to take that away from him. And I got to say, we need bold action on guns, bold action on women's rights, bold actions on teacher pay, bold actions on gender parity, and bold action on climate change. Early to bed, early to rise, work like hell, and organize. Let's go get a new president. Thanks a lot.
Democrats win when we talk about our values. And here's an important one for me. No matter where you live in America, you ought to have a chance to build a secure future for yourself and your family, and you ought to be able to count on a federal government that's on your side. But for decades now, in rural America, in small town America, that just hasn't been the case. And that's why a couple of days ago, I rolled out an expanded plan for rural America. And here's where it starts. It starts with health care. It starts with the importance of keeping our community hospitals and our doctors in business. You know, community loses its hospital, young families can't move in, and seniors feel like they have to leave. So here's how I see this. We start by being willing to fight against hospital mergers that cost us our local hospitals. And we recognize the economics. Small hospitals operate on thin margins. That means everybody who comes in the door needs to be covered by health care. That's one of the reasons I support Medicare for all. And we have to be willing to put in the resources to support our rural hospitals to make sure we've got enough doctors and nurses, that medical service is available to everyone in this country, all across this country. Part 2 of this plan is to make sure that we have access to high-speed internet everywhere in America. That's how you participate in a 21st century economy. And part 3, we need a farm plan that works for independent farmers. Farm plans for too long have been about big ag. We need to have the courage to break up big ag, to fight against big ag, to say no more sucking every last dollar out of the pockets of our independent farmers. I support supply management, and I say it's time for a new policy, an innovative policy, to bring in every single farmer, make them part of the solution to climate crisis, put them on the front lines. These are the people who will help take care of our land for generations to come and help us have a habitable planet for generations to come. And one more, trade war by tweet is not working for our farmers. I promise you this, when I'm president, when I negotiate a trade deal, there will be independent farmers at the table to make sure we get this right. And one last point I want to make. When I talk about structural change in our economy, when I talk about the kind of changes we need to make, it's so this economy works for everyone. Think about it this way. We need more power in the hands of workers. That means make it easier to join a union and give unions more power when they negotiate. And it's time for a wealth tax in this country. $0.02 from the top 0.1%, and we can have universal child care, universal pre-K, universal college, $50 billion into historically black colleges and universities, and we can cancel student loan debt for 95% of the folks who've got it. We've had enough of an America where the government works better and better and better for a thinner and thinner slice at the top. 2020 is our chance. We can make this government work for all of America. Let's do this, Democrats. Dream big, fight hard, let's win.
Your patience exceeds your good judgment. The good news is I'm last. Folks, it's great to be with you all tonight. You heard from great people tonight, people who across the board. And folks, you heard from people who share one fundamental belief, that there is an existential threat if we, in fact, keep Donald Trump for president for 4 more years. Now, I'm not saying it for applause because, you know, ladies and gentlemen, presidents, the words they say matter. They can move markets. They can send women and men to war. They can make peace. They can inspire us to reach the moon. They can appeal to our better angels. But they can also unleash the ugliest, most venal side of society. And ladies and gentlemen, when Donald Trump has, since he's become president, that's exactly what he has done. He's unleashed a constant battle that's taken place in America from the beginning. We have been here before. We've been here before with the Ku Klux Klan after the Civil War. We've been here when 3,000 Klansmen in 1925 walked down the streets of Pennsylvania Avenue in Washington, D.C., wearing full garb, and when, in fact, their pointed hats and the like, when there were over 30 members of the House who were declared Klan members, when, in fact, there were, I think, 6 or 7 senators who were open Klan members. But, ladies and gentlemen, you know, we fought back. We fought back because we had people that, in fact, decided that that's not who we are. This has been a constant battle with us. The reason I'm telling you this is it's not that we can't overcome it. I want to make it clear we can overcome this, but we must. You know, when you saw those people walking out of the fields in Charlottesville, their contorted faces, with anger, chanting the anti-Semitic bile that they did, carrying Nazi flags, accompanied by white supremacists, as well as Ku Klux Klan. The fact was that what happened then was David Duke talked about the President of the United States in terms of this is what we wanted him to do. He said he'd return us to what we should be. We found a president who said at the time, when asked when that young woman was killed, what about the two groups that clashed? And he said what no other president has ever said. He said there are some very fine people on both sides. No, he did. This is a reality. And ladies and gentlemen, you know, Donald Trump offers no moral leadership. He has no interest in unifying the country. There's no evidence that the presidency has awakened his conscience in any conscious way. Instead, he's publicly and unapologetically embraced the political strategy of hate, racism, and division. This is about more than any issue we can discuss today. You're going to get a chance to each one of us discuss in detail where we stand, and many of you have already heard us do that. But ladies and gentlemen, it's up to all of us. 330 million Americans who have to do what our president can't. Stand together, stand against hate, stand up to, let's call this what it is. This is white nationalism. This is white supremacy. And it's not only our values that are under assault, everything that makes America, America's under assault. Look at his attacks on the free press, his attacks on the independent judiciary, a legislature supposedly a co-equal branch of the government. These are the guardrails that have decided that we set up long ago to contain the abuse of power. And ladies and gentlemen, the American creed has always been that we are all created equal, that we hold these truths self-evident, that we, the people, in order to form a more perfect, we've never lived up to it. We've never fully lived, but every single generation has moved that curve, as Barack says, closer to justice. Further and further toward justice. But here's the deal. Every generation has done it. But ladies and gentlemen, the fact we never lived up to it isn't because we can't do it. Every single generation has done it, and that's why it's never gathered dust in the history books, all that we stand for. Folks, look, the fact of the matter is that Donald Trump doesn't get it. He truly doesn't understand what we're all about. 4 years of Donald Trump is going to go down in history as an aberration in American history. But 8 years of Donald Trump will fundamentally change who we are as a nation. And ladies and gentlemen, the core values of this nation, our standing in the world, our very own sense of who we are is at stake. So folks, everybody knows who Donald Trump is. We're going to let them know who we are. We choose truth over lies. We choose unity over division. We choose that we, in fact, are going to stand for what we always have. Because if we do, we can take it all back tomorrow. And we must. Donald Trump is the existential threat. Nothing will happen. Not a single thing can happen of what we care about unless we defeat Donald Trump. So God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Let's take it back. I refuse to wait any longer. Take it back now. This is America, the United States. There's nothing beyond our capacity. So stand up, America. Take it back.